Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of the Hunter Johnson podcast episodes. Thank you very much for being on the podcast, as we said in the last episode. If you haven't listened to the previous episode, then just jump back. It is episode 41, and I think we're on episode 41 because I'm well ahead with what I'm doing. But yeah, anyway, I've ruined the intro. So welcome back, Hunter Johnson.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
So in the previous episode, we touched on obviously your hunting and the age you started. The first rifle shot that you fired when you were 3 years old at your first rabbit, and then it took you 25 shots. Then your first deer at the age of 4, and then we sort of jumped through archery age 10, first deer aged 11. So what were the during them years from 4 to 10, how many sort of shots were you taking a year, and what was your sort of rate of killing?
I've killed a deer every year. Growing up, once I killed my first deer at age 4, my dad always made sure that I had killed a deer every year. He normally killed his during archery season. So it's usually archery season opens up first, and then it goes into like a youth and then rifle season. So I would always have to watch my dad, go bow hunting, and I'd have to stay at the house with my mom. And that's kind of what triggered me into archery hunting as we go through the years. So he would normally kill his deer during archery season. And then once it was able for youth to go out, he would take me. And, of course, he would have me practicing. We'd probably practice about a week before season, which I shot year-round other guns, but not my deer rifle. And he would make sure that I'm on and everything, and the scope sighted in. But normally, he would have it set up to where I pretty much kill my deer the first, week or two of hunting, and whether that's a buck or a doe. But going through the years, that probably progressed, several years. And then I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, I want to bow hunt," because I saw him doing it. And so he bought me a bow and everything. And I remember him telling me, he was like, "I'm not taking you hunting until you hit the bullseye at 20 yards from your knees." So that took me a couple of years to do, to even get that. And finally I was able to do it. And that's whenever he started taking me bow hunting.
Oh, right. So there is like a method and a way of getting that. How often are you practicing then? If it's took you 2 years to do it, how often are you out the back practicing at 20 yards on your knees?
At that age, it was probably only a month or two before deer season started. It wasn't a year-round thing like it is now. It was probably a month or two before season started, and I would go back and practice because I wanted to go hunting so bad. So I would sit there on my knees and just shoot at the target all day long.
But were you were only doing that for the months leading up to it?
Yes.
Why wouldn't you do it for the whole time?
I guess I wasn't as dedicated as I thought I wanted to be.
Do you look back on that and think I could have been doing that quicker?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing that you do it, and that 110-yard shot that we spoke about in the first episode is insane. The average person wouldn't be able to shoot a rifle and hit a deer at that, especially where you've got to aim as well.
Yeah.
Because it's not
can I turn this alarm off real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, cool.
Is that the missus cooking, is it?
No, it's an alarm that goes off around this time every day, and I figured it was going to happen.
Right.
It's just this system security alarm.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's fine. It's not like it goes out on YouTube and everyone can see you do that.
Right.
So we're at 4 years old, first deer. So what's the rifling like then?
So it was a 243. That's what the rifle was.
Yeah.
I don't remember a whole lot of it. Uh, my dad, he would always keep the gun, and he would never give it to me until uh, there was a deer ready to shoot. And I don't think he trusted me to pull a gun up out and put it out the window and everything. But he knew I had enough. He trusted me enough to get it in my shoulder, and he knew I knew where to aim and shoot. Yeah.
So how long did it take for you to be unassisted? Were you taking that shot at 4 unassisted, or was your dad helping you with a rifle?
He was helping me with a rifle. He helped get it out the window, and then he would hold the back of my shoulder. That way it didn't, because
yeah, of course.
it kicked pretty good.
So how long until you weren't?
I would say. Do what now?
How long until you weren't? Sorry, we both said the same thing at the same time.
Oh, I think I shot my first deer with a bow unassisted before with a gun. So I was unassisted when I was 11, bow hunting. Maybe my first rifle kill unassisted was around 12 or 13, somewhere in there.
All right. Is that the sort of...
Looking back, my dad had a lot of trust in me.
Is that the sort of average age that you would say people do, or were you fairly early to that?
Yeah, I was pretty early, I'm going to say.
So you didn't, well, your name sort of gives it away, but you didn't really have any choice in what you became as you grew up, really, did you?
No, I didn't.
And I'm sure you wouldn't change it.
No.
So we're talking about, obviously, the butchering in the first episode. I just wanted to come back to that because it was very early on when you started, helping out butchering and stuff like that. Some people would say very young, but I don't agree. I think people need to learn that sort of a skill, or not even that skill. They need to be used to that sort of, the blood and all the rest of it like that. I think it grounds you, and we are a part of nature, even though we live in 4 walls and with a comfortable bed and Netflix and all the rest of it. People do need to see that. And my lad, he actually helped my dad pluck a pheasant and stuff and dress a pheasant. So yeah, I like my kids to sort of see that side of it, because that's the natural world. We live in an unnatural world.
Yeah. Yeah, if I kill a deer or anything around here, my kids are right now at 3.5 and 1.5. I'll just throw them, in the truck, and they'll watch me. Watch me do everything.
Yeah, 100%. That's brilliant. So the butchering process, then. I've never personally butchered an animal myself. I wouldn't have the first inclination how to do it. So where do you start? How do you start? And then how, does it end up in the bags?
Okay, so how I do one animal is pretty much how I do them all. Some people hang up their animals. Well, that's if they can get a vehicle to it. They'll hang their animals up. I don't do that. Just because I backcountry hunt so much, and I've shot so many animals in remote places. Dragging them is not an option. It's cutting them up right there where they lay and getting them into bags and getting them into your backpack. So pretty much how it works out is I have a big tarp. It's a real lightweight tarp, and I lay it out. And I first make a cut around all their joints, their leg joints, their elbows, like their knee joints, their elbows, and then I pretty much make an incision, like up to their elbow, and then down the belly to that knee, and make it all one piece. And so I'll skin the skin back, and I'll lay it over their back to where there's just one solid piece of meat and side of an animal open. And I debone everything on the animal. I don't take the bones out. That's extra weight for me to have to carry, and I don't want to carry that.
Yeah.
So I pretty much do one side at a time, one leg at a time. And then as I cut it off, I put it into a bag. So everything stays clean. Um, Sometimes you have to deal with flies and bees. So having that big piece of skin that I fold over, you can fold half of it back over and keep the meat covered while you're just working on one leg. Um, Most people don't do this. That's how I figured it was best, and that's even how I do deer right here at the house. I do them all on the ground. I don't hang anything up. I just got really good and fast at that method, so that's how I do it. So it goes from straight off the carcass into the bag, and then once one side is done, neck meat and everything, I roll the animal over. Which when it's a big elk, it's kind of a hard thing to do when you're by yourself. And then do the other side, and then I kind of do things backwards. A lot of people gut their animals first, but I don't. And after all the meat is taken off, there's just a carcass there. And then I take the guts out, and then I go to my organs, and I'll get my liver, my heart, and then I'll get my tongue out of the head.
Right. On there, you've touched on that you gut it after. Why?
It stays cleaner, and then all the meat is clean coming off the animal. I don't have just a gut pile laying there, and while I'm getting meat off, and it's just the time that I have to mess with it is much less. So, like everything is in my bags, like ready to go, like get in the pack, and I just make an incision, pull the guts out, get the liver, get the heart, put it in its bag, and then I'm done. I can leave. I don't have a big pile of guts where the flies can come and just sit on that while I'm cutting up this animal for 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Why do people not do it that way?
Because a lot of people will drag animals. So they'll gut the animal and then drag it to make it lighter. But dragging it elk in the mountains is not an option. So, but still, some people will gut them to flip them and handle them easier.
What do you mean by drag? How would they drag them? What does that mean?
So, say like a whitetail. Say I'm hunting an open pasture, and my truck is parked, 400 yards away. Whitetails aren't very heavy, 95, 100 pounds. You know, shoot the whitetail, and then just grab it by the either leg or horns and drag it to the truck. And a lot of people will drag the animal to the truck and then load it in the truck and then hang it up at the house or take it to a processor and have the processor do it all.
But because you're walking in, you've got to carry the animal, and obviously you're up and down the hills and you can't drag it.
Correct.
Obviously for obvious reasons. Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying then. I thought you meant about there was some weight loss somehow because of dragging. Yeah. So, and also when you're cutting it up, cutting the legs, all the rest of it, and the body and stuff, you're cutting it into chunks. What sort of size are them chunks of meat?
So because I do all the processing and everything at home, I can do all my meat processing, grinding, and cutting in the steaks. So I try to keep it as clean as possible, and like the cuts clean. Because I separate each muscle individually when I get home to process it all. So I'm not just cutting chunks of meat off. I'm usually taking one big piece or a couple of big pieces. But a hindquarter of an elk is, man, I would say as big as like our torso, like from waist to shoulders, about that size, and probably around 60, 70 pounds just for one hindquarter.
Okay. When you're taking your shot, and obviously you've got to think about obviously the weight, and you've got to carry it and all the rest of it. How much do you have to sometimes do trips there and back?
Yeah, definitely. Usually around 3. If I'm by myself with an elk, usually around 3 trips.
And how long is each trip taking you to get there and back?
A long time. usually well over 4 hours.
And then, have you ever got back to a kill and it's gone?
Other than the deer that we talked about in the earlier podcast, no.
So you've never had? Do you hide them or like how? This is what I mean. I know nothing
No.
about this
See,
sort of side of it.
I have hung up an elk before, just getting it off the ground, and I do that anyways. It helps with flies and everything. Get them off the ground, and then I'll take like my shirt base layer because it's stinky and sweaty, and I'll tie it close. So if a predator does come, they smell the human scent there, and so it kind of veers them off. It's a good little trick to do. And I'll just tie that up, and it kind of keeps them away. And usually I don't have meat hanging very long. It's, a day or two.
Okay. And then when you're getting back, you said obviously about your processing them when you get back. How long does that take you?
My dad usually helps me with that. My dad, my mom. And so that's usually one full day of work. It's in the coolers, and I usually take it to their house, or they'll come here, and they have a big meat grinder. And I eat a lot of ground meat, so I'd say half of the animal. I think I had 90 pounds of ground burger off this elk, and the rest were steaks. So we just get an assembly line and cut up meat, cut up steaks,
move it through,
and move it through, grind it, and we grind it with we'll go to one of our grocery stores here, and where they trim ribeyes, and we'll get ribeye fat to grind in with it, and it's amazing.
That is, it just sounds like the dream.
Yeah, it is.
So for you, speaking of the dream, actually, where would your dream place to hunt be?
Alaska.
Alaska is the dream place, yeah.
Yeah.
And how old are you?
27.
So you're hitting your dream place at 27 years old.
Correct.
Is there anywhere else?
Not the dream animal, but the dream place.
Okay, dream place, dream animal. What's the dream animal?
It's definitely some sort of a sheep, like a Dall sheep, or I don't know if they have bighorn sheep, and I'm sure they do. Some sort of a sheep.
Okay. What you mean, the ones that are on the rocks?
Yes.
The ones that are like an ibex. You get them?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's ibex in New Mexico here.
So is that something you'd want to get to?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a possibility, and I've applied for that tag, and
So you spoke about obviously the tags a couple of times on it. Do you just want to explain how tags work and how you apply for them and stuff?
So, normally elk tags, depending on what state and what part of the state, some of them you can just drive to Colorado, go to your local Walmart, and buy a tag over the counter. Say, I need a tag for this unit, and you get a tag for that unit, and you just go hunt. Some units are in a draw process, so you have to get online several months in advance during their application period and apply for these tags. And then if you get drawn, they'll mail you your tags. Same thing goes for like mule deer in Arizona. Some are over the counter, which is what I hunt, and some are draw. I've never tried to draw for mule deer in Arizona. I've tried to draw for elk. Haven't got that tag yet, but the deer that I hunt is over the counter. Anybody can do it. And it's a $300 tag and like $160 license. So, and you have to buy the license to apply, and I apply for elk. So I already have my license when I buy a deer tag, and the rest of the cost is getting me there back. I don't buy hotels. I try not to eat out. I have a tent on top of my truck that I can sleep in, or I sleep in a tent. So the rest is getting me there. So fuel cost and the tag prices. That's pretty much all my hunt fees are just tag prices and getting me there and back.
Yeah.
When was the first time that you went out hunting on your own?
As far as out of state, like a big backcountry hunt.
Your first solo hunt in general, and then your first one out of state.
First time hunting alone, which my dad took me, but I went in by myself. I would say was around 10 or 11. As far as like my own trip that I planned, I drove out to. That's going to be 2015. So however many years ago that was.
6 years ago. So you'd have been 21.
Mm-hmm. So that was probably the start of my backcountry big game hunting adventures, going by myself.
You've mentioned big game there. What game do you hunt on the big game? And are they the same as well? You just get them all the tags from Walmart?
Yeah, pretty much. So big game I'm referring to is elk, mule deer, bear, those sort of animals.
How many bears have you shot? Or
one? Just one.
Okay. Do you want to just talk me through that?
Yeah. So I'd actually shot my elk 2 days before this, and I shot my elk so far in, I didn't want to go back in and hunt the gut pile. This, I guess, being somewhat of lazy, and I wanted to go like hunt some new territory. So I went and found a big glassing point in some like more lower country, and I saw a mama and a cub, and what you can't shoot a bear that has a cub. So I was like, I'm at least going to follow them and see where they're going, and maybe that'll lead me to more bears. So I did. I followed them, and she led me to 2 water holes, little ponds, and there was bear tracks on both ponds. And one pond had a bigger track on it, and I was like, I will hunt this pond. So I sat right there, and that evening, my big bear came in at 37 yards, and I shot. It was a big sow. And I shot her and watched her fall, watched her die right there.
What was that like?
Very intense because I didn't have, like I said, I don't carry a pistol with me. So I did shoot her again just to make sure with my bow. It was intense, and I was pretty scared. I'm not going to lie because she's huge, and she was an old bear. Probably 11 or 12 years old is what Colorado Parks and Wildlife was saying. So yeah, it was an intense moment.
With bear, how does the meat age? If you're eating an 11-year-old bear, is that better than an 8-year-old bear or a 5-year-old bear?
The only bear I've eaten is the bear I have, and it's amazing. You just have to cook it all the way through because bears carry trichinosis, and what you get from like raw meat. And I am a big proponent of raw meat, or at least a medium rare steak or a rare steak.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different getting used to. But I canned a lot of bear meat, and a lot of people hear of canned meat and it doesn't sound appetizing, and I didn't think it did either until I listened to a podcast on it. And I was like, I'm at least going to try it out. Man, let me tell you, bear tacos, awesome.
Oh, really?
Yes, out of canned bear meat.
Canned bear meat? Ugh,
yes.
Yeah. It doesn't sound that appetizing. It sounds like
doesn't.
It would just be a block, like spam.
No.
What does it come out like?
It's just so you cut it up in little chunks like you would do like some beef tips.
Okay.
And then you put it in a mason jar, and you put like a teaspoon of salt on top of it, and you put your seal and your lid on it, and you drop it down in the pressure cooker for, I think it was 90 minutes, with water over the top. And then once that 90 minutes is up, you take it out, and put it on a towel to dry, and then it cools down and seals, and you have your canned meat. And it's just not real tender. It's almost like little roast chunks inside of a can, and it stays good for, I guess, ever. I still have meat from 2 years ago that's still good inside of a can.
So how come you've only shot the one bear?
That's the only one I've had opportunity at.
Okay, but do you savor like if your meat, like you said about your freezer and stuff, you got all your meat in there. With that bear being the only bear you've killed, have you purposely kept your meat for longer to savor the flavour of bear?
Yes.
And so, is that like a special occasion meat, or is it?
Yes, it is. It is. I see. I had 1 can of bear meat left, and after I killed my elk as a prize, I ate my last can of bear meat.
Oh, right.
So I have a couple of packages of bear meat left. I'm actually going to eat some hamburger, some ground bear today for coming on the podcast. So that's a
Nice.
little prize for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wicked. Oh, well, I'm glad that you coming on the podcast has meant you've got to have bear again.
All right.
That's wicked. So obviously we've banged through your nutrition, your Alaska trip, but at the very start of the podcast, also, by the way, quick side note, going to Walmart to buy a tag to kill an animal seems insane to me.
Yeah.
That's like me going to Tesco's or Asda like that. Asda is our Walmart. I think Walmart own Asda. So that's like me just going to the supermarket, walking up to the counter where you can buy your gift cards, and you just say,
Yes.
"Can I get
That's
a tag,
it.
please?"
I mean, you drive 15 hours and just go into a Walmart and buy a tag, and then you can go hunt.
That's crazy. That is so insane. Okay, so yeah. You mentioned earlier as well about your actual work. I say your actual work. That is obviously a lot of hard work, but your job as an electrical lineman, and I have no idea what that is. So, yeah, would you like to expand on that?
Okay, so we are pretty much the reason that you have power at your house. We take care of power poles, power lines. That's what we do. A storm comes in and kills the power out. We go out and restore it. We build new construction lines. We do maintenance, and then we do storm repair.
So how long have you been doing that, and how did you get into that?
5 years. I got into it by because I did fine work, and I really liked working outside.
Just
but
for a minute,
I hated
Hunter.
being gone.
You completely froze out then. I haven't heard any of why you started doing it.
Okay, am I back?
Yeah, I heard 5 years, and then literally as soon as you were about to talk, it stopped.
Okay, so 5 years. What got me into it is I used to do pipeline work, and so I loved being outside, but I hated being gone. And then I had a friend that got into doing this, and him being outside somewhere new every day, but gets to come home every night. I was like, that's my cup of tea. That's what I want to do. And then I got into it, and I love it. So it worked out good.
How long would the training be for something like that?
I went to like a 3-month class, like it was a 15-week course, and then I got hired in. And then the apprenticeship is around 3.5, 4 years until you make lineman.
All right.
So pretty good while of training.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything you want to go over that we haven't spoke about yet?
There was something earlier and I forgot it. I should have wrote it down.
That's all right. Also, as well,
I think we cover
it. When you're grinding it down, your meat, how do you have to add fat and stuff like that? I know you touched and said about the ribeye. Is the ribeye the best fat to use? Is it, or is that just?
That's what I found to be best. Is just ribeye fat. Yeah, so I'll weigh my meat, like just lean like meat, and then I'll do my 20% because I like 20% fat, and then I'll add however much fat I need to that, and then I kind of just mix it all up, and then I send it all through the grinder together, and it blends it in nice. And then I mix it up again, and I'll send it through the grinder a second time, and it's all just nicely evened out and grind through twice with the fat added.
Has there been anything that you've shot that you haven't enjoyed?
No. And everything I shoot, I eat. So, and there's been nothing that's hasn't tasted good either. A lot of people will say certain animals don't taste good. I think what that comes down to is field care. How well you can take care of them in the field and get them from the ground to the cooler. Properly doing that, I think that's what a lot of people have issues with.
Yeah, probably. With it thingying in, and also we in fact I've got it wrote down here, which is good because I did forget. We sort of briefly spoke about, obviously, or I said about, obviously I can't imagine how much your bow costs. I'm assuming you're using a compound bow?
Yes, sir.
So what is that? What's your setup on that? And just explain people through, because most, all, unless obviously people from your community, like your friends, listen to this, most people won't have the faintest idea what a compound bow is.
Okay, so a compound bow is pretty much a bow. It's got two cams and it's got a let off. So it's a Mathews VXR. It's an expensive bow. I think my complete setup is probably around $2,000. So I have a equalizer on there, and it's pretty much a stabilizer and equalizer built into one. And I have a CBE hybrid engaged sight, and that's the one that allows me to get a very far distance. It's got a mover. The sight adjusts up and down, and it's got a pin that moves by itself. It's not just a fixed pin where I'm allowed to only a certain amount of yards. But yeah, it's a slick setup.
Yeah. What pounds foot have you got it set to?
It's at 81 pounds.
81. That's quite high, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty high. Yeah, most people, I'll say most people are around 70, 60 something pounds.
So with your setup, how long has it took you to get through? Like, what sort of a bow are you starting with up until now? Because I'm assuming you haven't had the same one.
No, it's different. Yeah. It took a long time.
And so when you're starting, I'm assuming you're not starting with like a normal bow and arrow, like Indians, like bow and arrow. You're not starting with one of them, are you?
Right. No. I have hunted with a recurve before. I've taken one hog with it, but I'm not good with it, and I like hitting what I'm aiming at. So I just kind of stuck with the compound.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's amazing. I always like to do this as well with guests when it's coming to the end of the podcast, is just for them to sort of give out any advice to anyone that wants to get into it, or anything like that. Just sort of a bit of a pep talk, I suppose, for the listeners, really. So, is there anything you want to sort of say?
Man, if anybody has any questions, they can contact me. I gave out my Instagram on the last one. I'm more than welcome to talk with anybody. I'll take phone calls. I'll message on Instagram. If you're hesitant about getting in it, I would say just do it. And I think when people kill their first animal and get to put their hands on that meat and then get to put that meat on their table and eat it, I think it changes a lot of perspectives when they do it themselves versus going to a grocery store and buying meat. It's a lot of pride you get to take in it, and the meat tastes better when when you kill it with by yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And there's a lot of podcasts out there, like hunting podcasts. And I think that's probably one of the best things to do. Learning is listening to like certain hunting podcasts. and that really like gets your learning curve down. Listen to other people's mistakes and like equipment failures. You can just get that big jump and, push forward yourself.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Hunter, as he said about his Instagram, is Hunter Garrett, and that's Garrett with 2 R's, 2 T's, 95. So Hunter Garrett 95 on Instagram. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Hunter. Thank you everybody for listening, and tune in next week for next week's episode, I suppose, and hit that like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much, Hunter. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.